Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Supply Chain. So, as always, we're starting with a question. Today, we're talking about sustainability. And despite many businesses seeing it as a costly investment, it actually could be the opposite. Now, failure to address sustainability challenges carries big financial consequences. So, according to the World Economic Forum, by what percentage could climate related disruptions reduce corporate earnings? Well, let me know your guesses over on social and keep listening because I'm going to let you know at the end of the show. So today I'm joined by a long-standing transportation and logistics company. This is their fourth appearance on the show. And who are they? Well, it's Werner. Werner is one of the largest truckload carriers in the United States with a diverse range of transportation services, from intermodal and cross-border transport to final mile and expedited services. Its multimodal solutions are built for businesses demanding precision, flexibility, and speed. And it's Chad Dittburner, Senior Vice President of the One Way Network and Innovation Council leader at Werner, that is joining me for the show today. And Chad has held multiple roles at Werner since he joined the company all the way back in 1993. So today, Chad and I will be talking all about supply chain sustainability. We'll be exploring the biggest industry challenges and leveraging real-time data to make better decisions, embracing alternative fuels to create future-ready fleets, and why sustainability is your supply chain strategic advantage. So welcome to the show, Chad.
Thanks, Sarah, for having me on. This should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. Now, this is Warner's fourth time on the show, and I spoke to Dara about a month ago, and we had such a fun conversation talking about data and information and technology, et cetera, et cetera. So, if anybody in the audience did not go and watch or listen to that episode, head over there now because you want to go and listen to that right after this one. And I can't wait for this next installment and our collaboration together. But before we dive deeper, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because as I said in the introduction, you've been with Werner for over 30 years. That's a long time. So take us on a bit of a journey. What does that look like?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me that's a long time. But I'll do a brief on my 32 years. So I started straight out of college as a management trainee and really worked my way through the one-way division, both in operations and customer service in my early years. And then a short 10 years in, I moved to Werner Dedicated Services as the VP and oversaw a third of our dedicated fleets.
Wow.
About 12 years in, I don't know if they got sick of me over there or they needed me over here, but I moved I moved back across to the one-way division, and today I lead as our SVP of van and expedited services. That's along with our Baylor and our ECM fleet acquisitions that we've made over the last few years. And you also mentioned the Innovation Council, and I think that's important to this conversation. Is I've been on the Innovation Council for about 10 years, and it really started as just what are some fuel saving initiatives on both the trucks and the trailers. Think of tires, think of everything that moves down the road with the vehicle, and also idling practices for drivers. So it started there, but really it's turned into a group of roughly 10 people that focus on different technologies, different things coming at us, just a lot in the industry. So I'm just a short day for me every day.
Short day. You've got a lot of responsibility, and it sounds like I can just sort of feel your passion and how much you love Warner, but also the impact and the work that you're doing on a daily basis. I think it's really important for that innovation piece, especially to what we're talking about today around sustainability, but making sure that we are creating that environment for everybody that works for everybody. And that doesn't just mean the people at Warner, the drivers, but also the people on the road and the people on this planet as well, which I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about today. So I wanted to acknowledge and appreciate that because those types of councils and the work that you do within those councils are super, super important. So today we're talking about sustainability. What do you see as the biggest sustainability challenge for the industry and for your clients specifically?
Yeah, it can be somewhat messy and different aligning goals, aligning initiatives. The overall pressure to reduce greenhouse gases is immense, as we all know. There's progress in so many different things, whether it be alternative fuels, electric trucks, hydrogen trucks, carbon reduction solutions, and how do we look at all those? How do we really analyze and test them? Um, but solutions aren't widely available at scale today, especially in our long haul operations, if you will, today, maybe more so in dedicated where there's a lot of return to base trucks on a daily basis. But most of the solutions come with a premium cost over clean new
Mhm.
diesel trucks today. So that's where it gets fun, right? Um, it takes help from Werner and our customers to make realities out of these and a ton of planning because nothing is easy. Nothing, unlike diesel, there's not whether it's an electric or a recharging facility, natural gas, there's not nearly as many as diesel fuel stops. So it
Right.
it sometimes makes it difficult to bring it to reality for certain customers' lanes or just a one-way lane. um, Charging, fueling infrastructure are just it's growing, but that's part of the challenge as we look at all these. Um, Also, high upfront cost on most of the things.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think
Created,
like when you talk about planning, sorry to interrupt, but when you talk about planning, like it's really about the route. Right?
yeah,
And how,
yes,
if you're going to use electric vehicles, what's the route that they need to take? Is it going to take longer? Are they going to get to the client a little bit later? Because they might, right? And especially with the charging stations, some charge a lot faster than others as well. So you really got to plan, but you also have to have a clear line of communication if you're going to use electric vehicles. But also, I think on the planning side of it, into the future, right? Like trying to think about what's going to come next and what does that look like because you're also trying to mitigate that risk and the cost for the company too.
yes. There has to be a thought towards profitability or lack or not having lack of profitability in all these. So tying those all together becomes a very drawn out um, solution. We work a lot with our pricing team and we work with operations to figure out the driver's needs and make sure we're taking care of everybody in that. And then regulations are ever changing, so we have to make sure we're meeting those. But our quest is to go well beyond that for both us, our customers, and everybody in the U.S. But there's got to be some reality checks on can we still do that profitably?
Yeah, it's so true, right? And also, like, I've been in a lot of rooms and a lot of panel discussions around sustainability. And your customer, or when I've been part of these discussions, the customer is like, I'm not paying for that. But in reality, we all have a responsibility, and there are a lot of costs to be able to implement this and make sure that we're making the impact that we want. But also, I think it's just good business, right?
Yeah.
I think it can also be a strategic advantage for supply chains and for companies who have supply chains and for partners like you partnering with your clients to help give them a strategic advantage for their supply chain. Why is that? Can you talk to me about that? Because it's not just the right thing to do.
Yeah, you mentioned good business. Absolutely. It's good for us, it's good for everybody. So we're huge supporters of it. That's part of the reason we have the Innovation Council and meeting after meeting to talk about how we can do things better and create a more sustainable solution for our customers, which helps you win more business. Um, Internally, we're focused on lowering energy use in our terminals and
Mm,
maintenance shops and anywhere we can from that standpoint. But most of our energy is out on the road moving freight every day. So that's really, if we're going to hit it at the largest bucket, that's where
mhm.
we've got to focus. Um, it aligns with our safety culture, well-maintained modern trucks, both safer and greener, which really reinforce our operational excellence on the roadway. Beyond appealing to our customers, our associates are also asking for it. They want to
Mm.
work for a company that's thinking about all those things. So it's not just our customer, it's not just making sure that we're doing the right thing, but our associates are asking, demanding for it also.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's where that collaboration piece comes in when I was talking about that panel discussion, right? Everybody has a responsibility within the supply chain for this to work as a strategic advantage. And that's not only internally at Warner, that's also your clients and internally for them as well, but also vendor partners and the next generation of team members that are coming up as well. They are almost demanding it, right? Because they want to work for a company that is being intentional about the impact that they are making. So, talk to me about how you are helping organizations approach their sustainability efforts. Can you talk about Warner's investment in alternative fuels, like what you're doing? What might a future ready fleet look like?
Yeah, absolutely. The first step is to understand where we're meeting them today, understand what their emission goals are and what they're really looking for. At the core, so many companies have different themes of what they're working towards. So we first
Mhm.
have to get where are we today and where are we looking to go tomorrow. Um, uh, Stay in front of new technologies and fuel options, just like the Innovation Council is focused on how do we bring the best solutions, the cheapest solutions to market. So the most exciting one for me right now is book and claim of renewable and biofuel. And we
Mhm.
have fuel providers that can provide that to us now. And you will then see the customer will see their scope 3 emissions out of that because you are reducing emissions when you're using more bio or solutions that are 99% bio um, or renewable fuel, the book and claim of that. So some huge advantages to emissions there. And we've got some real creative things that we're working on with customers right now in that area.
So
Um,
the alternative fuels, you mentioned bio. What are the alternative fuel options that you're looking at? Can you tell us?
Yeah. Yeah, so biofuel, which is out there today in almost every gallon purchased to a certain percentage.
Okay.
Uh, if I across the country, I would best guess it's 12%.
Hmm.
Some states are up to 20, some states are 10%. So I'm going to put it in the 12%. I just pulled that number out, so don't go back and look
That's
exactly.
okay.
Um, so that's a mix of think of cooking oils from your local fast food place and
Mhm.
collecting those, cleaning those, and mixing that in with a pure gallon of diesel fuel that we run down the roadway with today. So
Hmm.
that is, second generation of oils. So you're using those, and that creates a carbon offset there within renewable fuels. So you've got the bio, but you've also got renewable fuel. And really, in simple terms, you're taking a gallon of biofuel and you're further cleaning it to turn it into a gallon of renewable fuel. So it's much cleaner than even biofuel by comparison.
Hmm.
So we like biofuel. It runs great in our truck. It's basically the same properties as a gallon of standard diesel today, only much less on the emission side. So that's pretty excited. And then the book and claim where you don't actually have to use that gallon of fuel. You just have to pay for that equivalent, and then
Mhm.
you can offer that to the customer too in a scope 3 emissions reduction.
Hmm.
So that that's really become available. It is biofuel, renewable fuel really has been used in California for multiple years,
Hmm.
and they've had incentives to ship it all to California. Well, now it's becoming more available, and we're finding creative ways to fund it to our customers.
Hmm. That is fascinating. And it reminds me of a conversation I had a couple of years ago. It was with the head of procurement for an organization that runs cruise ships. And they were
Yeah.
talking about looking at alternative fuels for the cruise ships. And I want to say that they mentioned nuclear as a potential alternative fuel for that. And I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure he said that. And he was saying that that actually is a very good alternative. Now, I'm not saying this is for trucks or anything like that, but he said it's the fear of, the public and the people that because they don't know enough about nuclear that you couldn't necessarily run anything on nuclear because it has such a negative connotation, even though it has a lot of implications from a sustainability standpoint and an alternative fuel standpoint. And so it's interesting to hear what alternative fuels you're thinking about. And from that conversation I had a couple of years ago about what they're thinking about or what they can and cannot do just because of public perception.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's even to the point of our compressed natural gas trucks,
Mm,
our hydrogen fuel cell trucks, if you will. When you start talking about hydrogen, everybody thinks back. And what does hydrogen do? Natural
right.
gas, the same thing. They've created some really, really safe systems with natural gas, and I feel good about that. Hydrogen, we have tested a truck earlier this year. I think that will be part of the solution into the future. Today, hydrogen fuel is just so expensive, and clean hydrogen fuel is even more expensive, and
Mm.
it's not a practical application that I've found any customer that's willing to pay for that today. But I do think they're going to get that right. I think they're going to find ways, and it'll be down the road. I don't think it's 2 years down the road, but I'm not sure I will be here when it does become practical into
Yeah.
this.
Well, and it's interesting how different people are thinking about different things. And so we can't really predict what that future ready fleet's going to look like. But what we do know is that alternative options are really coming to the forefront. And companies like Werner, that's ahead of innovation, is really turning a lot of those savings over to your customers, which I like to hear. I love that. So, other than that,
One,
what?
one,
Yeah, go ahead.
I, I was just going to say one more thing. So,
Yeah.
what people often forget as we talk about cleaner trucks, as we talk
Mhm.
about different fuels to utilize, we forget that the newest trucks on the roadway are very efficient and their
Mhm.
emissions are much lower than older trucks. So, we absolutely believe in today, because it's practical and it works, is keeping the cleanest truck on the road that we can. So, our average age of truck is just over 2 years old. Industry is 6 plus, depending on what study you look at. So just having the newest truck on the roadway today, we have very clean by comparison to the average truck on the roadway. So that feels good for the driver, feels good for us, and absolutely it's emitting less pollutants. So we feel good there.
Absolutely. Now, what would you say is the impact of all of this on businesses? Maybe short term, but also long term as well. I mean, we've talked about, some cost savings, but what are some of the other impacts?
Yeah, I think short term, the early adopters, and I'm excited that we do have some customers. You mentioned it earlier, and I was going to mention it too, but it's tough. We do a lot of exercises, and most of them end with, "Whoa, I didn't want to pay any more money for that."
Yeah. Right.
We have to share in that cost if it's going to work, right? So,
Mhm.
um, short term, there are some operational cost incurred to get emission savings and efficiency gains on that. We're also seeing many shippers who prioritize partnerships with carriers that can demonstrate sustainability progress. So that is good. We have found some inroads with customers. The longer term perspective I look at is they're all new technologies. New technology is very expensive. As it becomes widespread, costs are going to come down, but we have to both put a little extra money into it if we're going to create it and make it widespread. So it's who's going to start, really.
Hmm. Absolutely. Well, and you mentioned earlier about scope three emissions and how some of those alternative fuels are able to give you an idea, or at least give the clients also an idea of what that does for their sustainability goals. And we can't really make smart decisions without the data, right? We talk about this
Right.
all the time in a variety of different areas, but it's also true in sustainability as well. So, can you talk a little bit about the platforms you use and how they're giving real-time insight into sustainability issues like the emissions that you've mentioned before?
Yes. And just as I said, customers, depending on the customer, have different goals. Customers
Mhm.
also have different requests for information. So that is a difficult part that we have a couple people
Right.
actually on Dara's team that help us with some of that and everything behind it. But whether it's the telematic systems to track the vehicles, speed limiting, fuel consumption, driver behaviors, those are all really contained in our platform science and our Samsara devices that are on the truck and running every day to see what the trucks are doing on the roadway. We're also investing in a new transportation system that Dara probably mentioned, the mastermind through Mastery, probably mentioned it a few times. Actually, I know he
You
did. I saw
did.
it.
Yeah.
Um, and then beyond that, to really take all that data and put it together in a usable format, um, we're using Salesforce Net Zero Cloud and Workivia to track the progress for our customers because it is a lot of information. It is a daily capture of fuel economies, on fuel purchases, on what type of fuel you're purchasing. So as you're talking about millions of miles run every day, it becomes very difficult to do in an Excel spreadsheet beyond reality, right?
That is
So
so true. And every time somebody mentions the Excel spreadsheet, all I think about is download and upload and download and upload. And what version are we on?
yeah.
No wonder
We
we can't
started,
manage it with that.
yeah, we when we first started with our BEV trucks, battery electric in California, we were doing it on a spreadsheet, and we quickly realized that we need to get away from that.
Right? I know. And
Yeah,
having data all over the place, plus the security and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure Dara was like, absolutely not. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So how does that really translate to results? Like what sort of choices do those insights reveal to teams and how can they help manage through decisions when it comes to things like stakeholder management or even that success reporting that we're talking about that you cannot manage on Excel?
yeah. Whether it's our investors, whether, as we mentioned, everybody internally, we want to report our success out there. We want to move forward. Some of the avenues to showcase, if you will, we've been a Smart Way High Performer and Excellence Award winner many years in a row, and that's the stuff they're measuring out there. I think we just recently got the top green fleet by heavy duty trucking again this year. So yes, those feel good, and that's part of it. We want to do the right thing, but we also want to advertise that we're doing the right thing.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Well, and that it's
but
possible, right? You
yep,
want to motivate other teams, you want to motivate other organizations to say, hey, we've done it. This is how we've done it, and you can do it too. Like it's achievable, it's sustainable,
right,
and it helps internally with not only retention, but bringing people into the business. And it's just an overall sort of good business, corporate social responsibility type program.
yeah, yeah. Um, we also report yearly on our energy scorecards. This will be the first year because it's taken a while to capture and get all the reporting, but we'll report our scope 2 emissions, which is our in the building emissions, if you will. It's our shops and our lights and our heating and air, all of those things. So we'll be reporting that later this year. Currently, we have our waste and energy scorecard that we report on an ongoing basis, and just a continued focus to reduce waste.
Hmm. And that's so interesting that you have a scorecard on that. Most people don't really want to concentrate on the waste and what they're contributing from that respect because it almost seems negative, right?
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
think the more that you achieve and the more that you're able to reduce it and show the impact and show the way forward, you really need that information to be able to look at that so that you can continue to do good and to make that kind of an impact on the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Not easy, but we're
Mm.
signed up for it.
Yeah, right. You don't really want to look at it, but you're going to do it anyways because you need to. Um, why do you think that it's so important that logistics solutions are scalable and built for sustainability? Now, this is a really good question, or I think it's a really good question because a lot of organizations are shying away from it, right? They're not talking about sustainability as much as they used to. It could be part of their corporate responsibility or social responsibility programs, But there might not be as much investment in that. So talk to us about this because I think it's important and I'd love to get your take on that.
Yeah. I mean, to get real impact on emissions cost, efficiency requires solutions, right? And you have to start with a pilot. So every single one of these starts at a pilot, and ultimately, all of our large shippers want real solutions, not at just one lane, not just once in a while. They want it every day. So whether it's compliance and regulations as they expand, or just a customer doing the right thing and wanting the right thing, it has to be scalable. So essentially, we're achieving network-wide environmental impacts, not just a story here and a story there. So
Mhm.
it all matters. And at the end of the day, our biggest customers are demanding it, and we want to do it. So that's how we get there.
Well, and I also think it's important to note that this is a journey and not necessarily a destination. Things are changing all the time, and you have to be ready for that. But also, I think, like you said, with a pilot, right? We're taking small steps, but as we take the small steps and we prove that it is not only good for business, it might be good for the bottom line, it's good for efficiency, it's good for everybody involved. That's where the trust comes in. And so once that's established and you've established that program with clients and internally and things like that, then it's not ever really second guessed. You're able to maneuver and pilot and try different things to make sure that it's working for everybody.
Right. And our backdrop drop internally, 2021, I believe, we set a goal out with some clear thoughts on what was going to happen,
Mhm.
clear, cloudy thoughts, what was going to happen by 2035. And we set our CO2 emissions reduction by 55%. And we knew that would be backloaded because technologies are yet coming. But I can tell you, even in the last 3, 4 years, that solution has changed a little bit, and
Mhm.
the vision towards how we're going to get there has changed a little bit with additional technologies coming to market. So I think it's going to be a mix of everything.
Yeah, and you've got to be open, right?
Yeah,
And not closed-minded to the fact that there's only one solution and this is the only way forward and this is what we're going to do. You have to be open because things are changing all the time. And like you said, new technologies are coming on board to be able to help with a variety of different things. So I want to ask you, because this is kind of one of my favorite parts of the conversation, because I want you to bring a case study to life for us. Like, how did you help a customer with their sustainability needs? What was the ROI and benefit that they saw from that?
yeah. I can, yeah. So in our, without mentioning name, in our food and snack vertical, if you will, we had a customer come to us and ask, knowing that we had some BEV vehicles out there, ask how we could fit business together. Went through a bid, identified some lanes that would fit. Then literally, I'm going to tell you, we met with their senior group and our group multiple times, 10 plus times over a 3 or 4 month period to figure out how we could work this out. And as I thought back about getting that business on board, we probably spent 5 times the office and pricing time alignment on those as we do in a normal diesel bid. So it wasn't easy to start
Right.
and get it moving. It was going to take charging on at our terminal. It was going to take charging on the other end, and it was daily runs, and BEV was fairly new. Um, taking people forget there's a driver in the truck, right? When you look at a solution, so the charging on the other end, we had to accommodate for the driver on the other end. Well, he or she is sitting, waiting for the vehicle to charge, and just then figuring out it was pretty tight going both ways, not on time, but on energy that we had to use on
Huh.
the electric truck. So what if we had an event? What if there was backup in traffic
Right.
or extreme heats, things like that, because they all affect the BEV vehicle. So we then had to find alternative points where we could charge along the way, and it was, for not a large fleet of trucks doing this, it was pretty time consuming, but at the end, it felt great. We've been doing it for over a year now, and it's working very well, and the customer's happy with it. One other thing we had to do is they wanted 100% renewable energy. So we then had to go to the power company and get the equivalent of that. They
Hmm.
were providing roughly 30% in the power they were giving us, but we had to go and find that additional energy. So it's not easy to get there as we talk about, but we
Mhm.
did it and it's working and they feel real good about it, which makes me feel great. The
Well, and
other
I'm
one,
assuming that it's optimized a lot of things for them as well, but also helped them hit a lot of those goals that they had set out for themselves as well.
yeah, yes, absolutely. Let's talk about two. I thought of one other, and this
Okay,
was
do it.
this isn't even necessarily a fuel, but it's fuel saving, so it's tied to fuel. A little over a year ago, we were working with a company, and they said with additional devices put on our trailers, we could save 3+% in fuel economy, which
Hmm.
goes right to savings in emissions, savings
Yep.
to the bottom line. And we did some tests. We paid to do a test on a track because we trust you, but let us test it too. And,
Fair.
uh, and we saw the same thing. So this wasn't any customer help, and this one feels good that we're looking at these things, but we went out, made the decision, and we have been installing these devices on every single trailer,
Hmm.
new and back installing some of our trailers into the fleet. We're over 4,000 trailers in the last year that we put these devices on and plan to do
Wow.
it with all of the trailers into the future. But that's 3% fuel savings on those trailers for an investment that approximately 2 years to pay for it on the trailer. So that makes sense, and that's the right thing to do. So we're going full speed ahead on that.
Absolutely. That's a great story. And I'm glad that you added that one in because I think it's interesting to hear from a client perspective, but also you're the one that are coming to the forefront with some of these innovations and these investments and what that looks like for Werner and how you're benefiting from it as well, because that also turns into the advantage for your clients as well. So we've touched on a few interesting things like hydrogen fuel cells, biodiesel. What other innovations do you see in the industry's future? Is there anything that you have an eye on, or is there anything that you're investing in for the coming year?
Yeah, there's there's a lot of technology out there, and with new technology, and we learned this clear back in 2012, 13, 14 when we were testing the natural gas trucks in the first really entrance of the natural gas truck in the early years. And now, I mean, what else are we seeing? We're testing electric APUs, we're testing solar chargers. There's carbon capture devices on the exhaust that we will test in the future. Interesting way of looking at it, actually capturing the carbon and collecting the carbon. So that's interesting. Additional RNG natural gas as it becomes available and how we capture that for our natural gas trucks. And then like I said earlier, I think the hydrogen truck too will be there someday. It's just the hydrogen fuel is so expensive today, ridiculously expensive.
Mhm.
So those are the main ones, but really I would say testing in very early adoption of those items I mentioned, but really trying to understand, are they going to work? Are they going to work on the roadway? And are they going to work for the life of the truck, or at least the life that we own it, and making sure that we have good trucks all the way through. And nothing nothing gets decided quickly as we go through and try and understand the benefits and cost of each. We have to ingest that data and make sure that it works for Werner Enterprises.
Yeah, and I think we're lucky as an industry to have companies like Warner looking at these functionalities and looking at alternative fuel options and being willing to talk about it and understanding that you're testing and you've got testing environments and what that's looked like for you and how things have worked out and how they haven't worked out. And I think that's really how we move forward as an industry to make sure that we are doing things sustainably, that we are optimizing what we're doing for everybody involved, right? Because I think that being able to share some of your insights today into sustainability and what Warner is doing to drive efficiency and support a cleaner, greener future is really what we need as an industry, and moving forward, how we make change, how we make impact, and what that looks like, right? So, did you have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you, according to the World Economic Forum, by what percentage could climate related disruptions reduce corporate earnings? Well, it's 7% annually by 2035. And that's a huge number and definitely not to be underestimated. So, if you're looking for a partner that understands the vital role sustainability plays for businesses and for our planet and is committed to helping you meet your emissions goals and drive long term progress, well, head over to Werner.com to learn more. A massive thanks to Chad for joining me and to the team at Werner for making this episode happen. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. We've got more incredible guests and innovative strategies coming your way. So until next time, I'm Sarah Barnes Humphrey, and this is Let's Talk Supply Chain. Chad, thanks again for joining me today.
Thank you.